especially after the difficulties that I had with the last video about the Apple Network Server 700s, which are sitting off in the back in a corner where they belong. They know what they did. I've decided to do something a little bit easier. Because in addition to the struggles that made it into the last video, I had recorded a bunch of other stuff that I decided to save for a later video. Some struggles I was having with the hard drives that were in those machines. That is a whole adventure to get back to on another day. Instead, I've decided to kind of revisit, I guess, in a way, what I had originally planned for the videos of when I did those videos, if that sentence makes any sense at all. I don't know that it does. Originally, I was planning to get back to the Sun Ultra Sparc 10 and Ultra Sparc 6 Sparc 60 systems. And so I spent a few months kind of gradually acquiring some upgrades and new toys to use with those machines. But once those came along, they kind of took priority and all that stuff got put on the back burner. So all those upgrades and things, I haven't even taken out of the boxes. So this video, I'm just going to do an unboxing of a bunch of stuff and take a look at some toys that I fully intend to incorporate as bit players scattered across a bunch of later videos about those Ultra Sparcs machines. And actually, it turns out some other Sparc machines. Before I get to the unboxing, I'm sorry. This has been very something. I was originally going to so in my previous video, I was having a lot of problems with the audio levels on this microphone. I've been using this old Yeti stereo mic for basically since I started the channel. I like it because it has the right kind of mount for the mic stand that I have, and it makes it pretty convenient. I'm using a different Yeti microphone right now that has a different microphone mount. I have periodically had audio level problems with this, and I've had a lot of frustration with it. I noticed in the last video that in the segments where there was a lot of background fan noise from the giant Apple Network server, that it was the audio was just blown out. Like, it didn't matter how I adjusted anything, it was just clipping and blown out and sounded terrible. And that's with, like, I have tried every possible gain setting on this thing, and it doesn't matter. I will periodically just have like terrible audio, and I am not able to figure out why it's terrible. So I switched microphones. I switched a bunch of my setup in OBS, and something I forgot about OBS is each scene that you add, each configuration of cameras and input devices. So in the first segment, I had one scene that was just the one camera and me. And I set that up, and I did a bunch of tests with it, and everything was fine. I set up another scene that was that camera and this camera. Okay? Looked fine, started recording. I didn't add any audio input sources. So the next segment, which is going to be, I think, 3 unboxings, is surely going to have some very awkward voiceover because I can't redo an unboxing. I may at the end get all the cards back and talk about them individually to kind of make up for that, but I don't know what else to do. Someday I'll be good at this. I'm sure of it. I think the shipping date on this box is May 14th or something, so it was pretty old even by the time I was recording this video. I've been saving these up for a long, long time. It's neat that this is the original Sun box for the item, and the item on the box gives away the contents. It's an Elite 3D M3D. All of the boxes up until the very end of the video are things that I ordered from various sellers on eBay. Throughout this video, I'm going to make efforts to edit out some of the more annoying aspects of the unpacking. Some of the items later in the video are packed in a ridiculous amount of crinkly bubble wrap, and with the adjusted mic setup, the noise from that stuff was so annoying. So I'm going to try to cut a lot of that out. I had remembered that this card was going to come with a bunch of extra stuff, including the manual, but I didn't fully remember what what this was going to be in here. I'll dig into this mystery envelope a little bit later. The disposable anti-static wrist strap is an added bonus. Lots of higher-end add-on boards back in the day included these. What I did not expect, or perhaps just did not remember, was that the card looks to be brand spanking new. I think that this is new old stock. For comparison purposes, I'm going to go grab the previous generation card, the Expter3D. I could only actually find a Expter2D, but it looks essentially the same as the Expter3D. I talk about the Expter2D and the Expter3D cards in the previous videos about the Ultra 10 and Ultra 60 systems. I believe that the Expter3D cards only handled very basic 3D rasterization. The Elite 3D cards are a completely new architecture. The rasterization capabilities are still pretty rudimentary, and there is still no hardware texture mapping. However, these cards add geometry processing. In the PC world, we would eventually come to call that hardware TNL, transformation and lighting. The rasterization and geometry processing is spread across a bunch of chips on this card. I'll talk a bit more about this later, but the Elite 3D M3 and M6 are essentially the same card. The M6 has an extra connector here where an extra board with more geometry processors would be connected. This increases the geometry performance, but the rasterization performance remains the same. This should help applications that are drawing lots of very small polygons or lots of lines. This is pretty typical of CAD type applications from this time period. It's good to have the manual, or I probably wouldn't be able to figure out how to install this card. The big surprise was this envelope. It contains the original driver disc for the card, and it's still factory sealed. I don't think I will need this disc because I only intend to use this card with versions of Solaris that already have support for the hardware included. I plan to keep this disc sealed. I can figure out how to Tetris everything back into the box later. This is a bit of a pet peeve of mine. This next box annoys me quite a bit. I think back in maybe the 50s and 60s, it was common to wrap shipping boxes in brown paper and bundle it with string. You see this in a lot of old movies from the time. Now, the United States Postal Service does not allow that now because both the paper and the strings get caught up in their machinery. This person wanted to wrap the box in paper, so they mummified it in packing tape. Why did they want to wrap it in paper, you ask? Well, to hide the fact that it's a USPS fixed rate priority mailbox, of course. Instead of just finding an appropriate box, they went to all the effort of mummifying essentially a stolen box and put me through all the effort of undoing it. And I think that's really lame. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox now. Inside the box is not a card for a Sun machine. It's a card for an IBM P-Series AIX workstation. Specifically, this is a GXT 2000. I ordered this for a 43P machine that I have. Unfortunately, this card is not usable in the Apple network servers. It requires at least AIX 4.2. something, and the Apple network servers can only use the special versions of AIX 4.1. So I think this card might come up as just a a plain frame buffer card, but it would get no acceleration 2D or 3D or anything. It is my understanding that this card is the same hardware as the Diamond FireGL 2. I have one of those cards also, but I was too lazy to dig it out for this video. The two cards do look quite a bit different from each other. The FireGL 2 has just a giant heatsink that covers the graphics processor and all the RAM, whereas this one just has a small heatsink and fan on the graphics chip and no heatsinks on the RAM. At some point, I want to do a video that compares those two cards head to head. And on to the last package from the, shall we say, the silent film era. This is a packaging hack that I can get behind. The seller took a larger box and chopped it up and folded it up to make it into a smaller box. This didn't require 12 miles of tape or paper wrapping or any nonsense that I had to hack through. I approve. Somewhere inside the many layers of bubble wrap and the anti-static bag is the other Elite 3D card. This is the M6. I'm going to omit everything else from this segment that I recorded. After I realized that the audio was missing, I recorded another segment with sound where I compare this card, the M6, with the card that I opened earlier, the M3. For comparison purposes, this is the Expert3D M3, and here is the Expert3D M6. Now you can see the bottom layer of this card is just this card. There's an extra connector that would be here that's attached, and then this second layer, I believe, is just these three chips. As far as I'm aware, this part is the rasterizer part. This must be the bus interface, and these chips are the geometry acceleration. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is the M3 because 1, 2, 3 geometry accelerators, and this is the M6 because 3 below, 4, 5, 6. It's just a guess, but it seems a reasonable one. Hypothetically, this should have twice the geometry performance, but that will remain to be seen until I can do some benchmarks between them. All right. I believe this is the last actual Sun card. Yes, okay. This is a, so it says that it is a Wildcat. It says that it is a Wildcat 3. I'm still getting used to the the new microphone setup. But it is actually, it doesn't say on here, probably says on here, maybe on the shipping form. So this is a Sun Expert3D Lite. So Sun made their own graphics chips for a while. And I think I now have all but one of the graphics chips that Sun made. I am missing the XVR 1000. I'm working on getting one. This was, they had kind of made a switch when they sort of decided, you know what, making GPUs is not the business we want to be in. So they went to someone else, and they went to, I think at the time when they made this card, it was still Intergraph, but this would eventually be, Intergraph would eventually be acquired by 3D Labs, and they would continue producing cards based on 3D Labs designs, based on the Wildcat family. There would be two Wildcat 3 cards, the Expert3D Lite and the Expert3D. There would be there's an XVR 500, an XVR 600, which I have an XVR 600 somewhere. I believe it's installed in another machine that I received. And then the XVR 1200. The XVR 1200, I know off the top of my head, is a Wildcat 4 7110. So I'm trying to acquire all of the Intergraph based cards because I want to do an experiment. So these are all 64-bit PCI 66 megahertz bus, and they use a bridge chip to bridge from. These chips are natively AGP. The PC versions of these cards, which I'm tipping my hand here, the PC versions of these cards are all AGP, and I believe that they're all AGP Pro, or at least a bunch of them are AGP Pro. So there's a bridge to bridge 66 megahertz 64-bit PCI to AGP to let these cards work in the Sun machines that obviously did not have AGP. Now, I've got this big ginormous box. I also bought a very large lot of 3D Labs cards. Oh my goodness. Okay. So this, and there should be another one of these in this pack, is I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. I looked at one of these cards in a previous video, one that I had gotten from my friend Matt. Because it's the card that has the weird digital video connector that was the video connector nobody wanted. And I think this, based on the size of the package, might be the other one of those. Now, I'll put up on the screen what model card this is, and I'm surprised it doesn't say on here. That's a thing that really irritated me about graphics card vendors, is like, put on here what the card is, for crying out loud. I mean, at least 3D Labs puts their logo on. It drives me nuts when you see various cards that don't even say who, have no maker's mark at all. Oh yeah. All right, I'm gonna save that one. I'm gonna save that one for last, I think. So this is a Wildcat 3 6110. And as you can see, it is AGP Pro. Thankfully, I have one or two AGP Pro machines. Now, these two are the same generation. And you can see that like this chip and that chip look the same, and these two chips look the same. I believe that the difference is that this is a dual rasterizer version, and I think, I'd have to go back and check my notes, I think that the 6110, so this is the Expert3D Lite. I believe the Expert3D is this card. So it's dual rasterizer, and I believe it's more highly clocked, and I find this arrangement, and Intergraph used this, and 3D Labs kept it up, is interesting, where they have passive heat sinks, but then they have fans kind of, so it's sort of, you know, the original dual slot fan configuration, but without the housing. And I have some anxiety about these teeny tiny little fans, because I remember This teeny tiny little fan on the one of these cards that I looked at before runs at about 1 billion RPM, and it just made my ears want to bleed. Now so when this auction listing originally went up, there were a bunch of duplicates, and then apparently someone made the seller an offer on some of the cards, and so some of the duplicates went away. So that made it even more attractive to me because I do not need a whole bunch of the same card. Oh, well, now wait, I may have been... So this is a Wildcat 2 5000, and I believe... this is interesting because I thought that the Expert... Let me go back and check my notes. So this is the previous generation, and this is the single rasterizer version of this card. Again, it is also AGP Pro. There were different versions of AGP Pro. This is a later version that has extra power pins. I don't know if the AGP Pro motherboard I have is the right flavor for this card. Let me go double check my notes because this is the equivalent of another one of the 3D of the Sun cards. Okay, people may have been yelling at their screen. This is the equivalent of an XVR 500. This is a Wildcat and it just has 3 claw marks on it. This is the equivalent of a Wildcat 4000. Okay. Wildcat 1 generation, Wildcat 2 generation. This was an XVR 500. This is the equivalent of an XVR 600, which I have back installed in another machine. It's another 64-bit PCI card. Okay. My mind was just telling me that I was misremembering, and I needed to go check my notes. And this is the Wildcat 4 7110, is the next generation after this. This is the equivalent of a Sun XVR 1200, which I do not yet have. I'm hoping to fill in some of those other gaps, and I would really like to do performance and functionality comparisons, because I think the drivers between Windows and Solaris exported different functionality, which I find a little bit odd and confusing, but I want to explore that more. There were, in both of these generations, there were a little bit higher cards of this. There was a 6210 and a 7210. I believe the only difference is it doubles the memory. And these each have a ridiculous amount of memory. It's like 64 megabytes of frame buffer memory and 128 megabytes of texture memory. I think that 120 megabytes of texture memory is 64 megabytes per rasterizer, so it's really only 64 megabytes of texture memory, but it's still a giant pile. I also find it interesting that these also have a bridge chip on it. I didn't notice that before. That is, well, or is that the, I wonder how these cards are architected. It is not an architecture that I know very much about. I look forward to exploring it. Now, in addition to this, a few weeks ago, I went up to, I guess it was still a few weeks ago. I think it was in early October at this point. So about a month ago, I went up to the Interim Computer Festival in Seattle. On the way back, I stopped at RePC and I bought these two actual Sun-branded 13W3 to 13W3 cables. They're straight through, which I have needed for a while because somewhere over there, I think, I have a giant 20-inch Sun CRT that I haven't even been able to test because it has 13W3 on the back, and I don't have any 13W3 straight through cables. So getting these for $4 each was pretty excellent. While I was away at that, there's a local group of electronics enthusiasts and tinkerers and makers. Their group is called Dorkbot. They have regular meetups in Portland. That same Saturday that I was at the Interim Computer Festival, they had a swap meet. And a friend of mine messaged me and said, hey, some guy has a box of Sun stuff that he's giving away. Are you interested in it? Why, yes, I sure am. So he grabbed it for me. And it turns out that both guys were people from my local retro computer club. I haven't been through this box yet, except just to kind of look at it. But I can already tell that there's a lot in here. So I'm going to kind of slide this off to the side, and I think I'm going to pull things out and just look at them as they come and talk about each bit. So this is going to be a hard drive caddy for, I want to say a SPARCstation 5 or 20. Looking at it, it's for something in that generation. And then this is going to be a floppy drive also for one of those, for something in that generation. I can look up this part number to figure out exactly which model of Sun it goes in, and it has a disc in it, which is interesting. Now I thought all the Sun drives were like Apple Macintosh drives, that they were self-ejecting, and this is missing the eject button. I wonder if this is interesting. Okay. And then I'm not sure what that's. Some kind of a drive rail. Oh, and this looks like a slot cover. Oh, slot covers, I think, for SPARCstation 5, 10, and 20 fans for something. Oh. So, this is glorious. So these are definitely slot covers from like SPARCstation 5, SPARCstation 10, and SPARCstation 20. That kind of era. One of the SPARCstation 10s that I have was missing several slot covers, and that allowed at one point mice to live in it and utterly destroy it. So having spare slot covers is a good thing. And this is another drive carrier. Another slot cover that doesn't have the screws. They have this weird mechanism where they have these little screws and these little like rectangular washers, I guess for lack of a better word, that the slot cover goes on the inside, and then you screw the screw and this little washer in from the outside to hold it into place. It's kind of an odd mechanism. Let's go through this. Oh. It looks like maybe just the little screw washer and washer thing came off of that. Here. Oh, okay. So 3 with with a rainbow of yellowing happening here. These are the specific model of CD-ROM drive that goes in a SPARCstation 5 or a SPARCstation 20. That is super cool. There's a couple more of the little rectangular washers. I don't see any more screws in here. Holy smokes, what a... Okay, there's a screw. Okay. What a giant pile of RAM. Oh my goodness. Wow. No indication of capacity on them, but there are Sun part numbers on all of them. And from the looks, these look like... Let's see, did any of them say a capacity? Oh, this looks really familiar. These look like the... What do they call them? They didn't call them DIMMs. It sure looks like a DIMM, but I think Sun called them dual SIMs. Silly. But these are the kinds of memory modules, I believe. Oy vey, there's a lot of them in here. Nobody says the capacity. I'm going to have to look. I'm going to have to look all these up. This one says, okay, so 32 meg. 32 meg would go in a SPARCstation 5 or a 20, and I think, there's 3 of those, okay. And I think they will also go in an Ultra Spark 1. Wow, this is a lot of RAM. I will, if any more of these are 32 meg, I will likely be able to completely max out the SPARCstation 5 that I have. So that's exciting. I decided to get my SPARCstation 5 out just so that I could maybe test some of this RAM, and I was instantly saddened. This is for sure not SPARCstation 5 memory. So it must be, I know I have memory modules like this, so this must be for, it's not going to go in there. This RAM must be for, I believe, SPARCstation 10. If I have modules around, the only other weird RAM that I have would be for SPARCstation 10. I think 10 and 20 use the same RAM. I could have sworn I thought the 5 and 20 used the same RAM, but I must have been misremembering. I think it's possible the Ultra 1 uses the same memory, but I don't remember for sure. I don't know if I feel like digging that out right now. I got an Ultra 1 in the same giant barn rescue where the Apple Network servers came from. I'm gonna get to that eventually. It is way down on the priority list though. So maybe this RAM will be useful for that. Here is a the slot cover that goes with that floppy drive. And oh my goodness. And then a bunch of PRAM batteries, and one that somebody has already modified to take probably a CR2032 battery. A little bit janky of a mod there, but I will have to eventually test that out and work. Okay, and here's another floppy faceplate. That one is a little bit less yellowed. Actually, I think this one is fine. This one's just a very little bit yellowed. Oh, wow. Okay. So this is a single CPU card, and these I'm going to actually... There's going to be a lot of edits here because I'm going to look all these up as I go through them. So what I will do to facilitate that is pull a bunch of them out. These two look the same. They have different model. They have different... So Sun uses these. Usually there will be a 501 number or sometimes a 360 number that if you come across this kind of stuff, that is how to look it up. Oh, well, this one proudly declares on it that it is a Super Spark 2. And I think the Super Spark 2 integrated the cache controller on the chip. So no, those are different pinouts. So it must not have integrated the cache controller. Sorry. So that's going to be a single CPU. And this looks the same. And this looks the same as that. Okay, so the rest of these look to be video cards. All right, I will set those aside for just a moment. All right, let's look up these model numbers. All right, so these are a pair of 50 megahertz Super Spark CPUs that have no L2 cache. The common name for them is SM50. These are a pair of 60 megahertz Super Spark CPUs with L2 cache, but I don't remember how much. These are commonly known as SM61. These are Super Spark 2 75 megahertz, common name SM71. These are really high-end processors for a SPARCstation 10 or a SPARCstation 20. Unfortunately for me, about a year ago, I bought a pair of these modules. So now I have 4. I mean, it's possible that these don't work. It's possible that the ones that I bought and still haven't tested don't work. It will be, I have some other Sun CPU modules. It is going to be a thing that I've wanted to do for a really long time, is do some benchmarking across all variety of different CPU modules in a SPARCstation 10, and just to get a view of the CPU performance landscape on that architecture. Now, the rest of these cards, which all appear to be video cards, because they've all got 13, and I've never seen a 13W3 card with a with a cover on the connector. That is interesting. All right. So these all look like Turbo GX cards. So fairly common, variations of the Turbo GX, CG6, whatever you want to call it. This one looks different. Let me look up and see what this is. Okay, and this one looks different because it is different. This is a CG3, so the previous version. I believe that CG3 is 8 bits per pixel, but completely unaccelerated, and then the various flavors of the CG6 add 2D acceleration. There was one card that had some 3D acceleration for this kind of bus that would work with a SPARCstation 51020. And I have one, and I still want to do a video about that. That has been hanging out for so long. Okay, wow, this was quite a big pile of stuff that I am looking forward to playing around with. This is going to take a while, especially because I have to finish up with those Apple Network Server 700s. I also have a video coming up. I'm finally going to get back / kind of have already started to get back to the rarest PC sound card in the world. I have a video coming up later this year. I'm anticipating that being in early December. If you found this video and this look at these various video cards and processors and memory and all kinds of stuff, oh my, interesting, I'd really appreciate you clicking the like button. If you are interested in seeing this stuff come back and actually get lit up and put to some use, I highly recommend that you click the subscribe button. And until next time, try to remember the good stuff.